everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 5 of The Rings of Power, and I gotta say, I think this is my favorite episode so far of the entire show, and I don't know how many episodes there are gonna be. I don't know if there's only 10 episodes or if there's 20. I honestly don't know. But I will say it feels even more so than last episode. It feels like things are finally like kind of coming together. You know, we have several plot lines converging. You know, and it all makes sense. Some plot lines have been stronger than others, but this episode we did get a taste of all 4. So, you know, that was nice to finally get. So let's just go and start with what I think is probably the weakest one, is the Numenor and Galadriel plotline. And the only reason I say this is because this one, more than anything else, feels like we're just waiting for like the thing to happen. You know what I mean? Like, we know that Isildur and his father are going to leave Numenor and go to Middle Earth, and we know that, you know, obviously all that stuff happens, right? Very important events happen. But like, the last couple episodes, it's felt like they're kind of just twirling their thumbs, saying like, should we leave Numenor? No, we shouldn't leave Numenor. She's an elf. We don't like the elves. Oh, but her dad likes the elves. And they kind of do it in this episode too, where it's like, oh, we're definitely leaving because we decided that last episode. And then like the queen's dad, the actual king, he says like, oh, don't go. All that's there's darkness, you know. And then there's like this one guy tries to like sabotage the boats to prevent them from leaving. You know, so there is still a little bit of like kind of twiddling their thumbs, you know, just going like, I don't know, are we gonna leave? I don't know. It's like, you know, they're gonna leave, just do it, you know. But I guess they have to kind of line up with the other plot lines happening, so it makes sense that I guess they had to like carry, you know, kind of like string that along a little bit. But yeah, finally at the end of the Numenor plotline, or not the end, but you know, at the end of this episode, everyone is on a boat. Isildur and his father and Galadriel and what's his name, Halbrand, the guy who's supposed to be the king of the people in the Southlands. Everyone's on a boat. Everyone's leaving Numenor. Everyone's headed to Middle Earth. It's finally happening. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, it hasn't been awful. Like, look, Numenor, it looks beautiful. Learning about their whole system they got going on there. But I will say, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm glad it feels like we're finally moving, you know? It feels like the last couple episodes, maybe you could have even skipped the Galadriel plotline, because it's like, they're not leaving Numenor yet, so we're still waiting, you know? But we're finally getting somewhere, so I'm happy. I'm happy that it's like, it's happening for real. They're on a boat, they're leaving. They showed them leave, you know? So there's that. Okay, and then next we have the Southlands plotline, which this one actually started to get pretty interesting. So of course we have our soldier elf, we have the people of the Southlands who've all they evacuated to the Watchtower because of course orcs took over their entire village, right? Like, everything's being overrun by orcs, and their leader, who is, oh man, what is the leader's name? It starts with an A. I'm gonna say Alan. It's not Alan, but you know, it starts with an A and it's like one, like 2 syllables, you know. Anyways, so here we have the villagers kind of arguing over what to do, because remember, the people in the Southlands long ago, they helped the bad guys. They were not on the side of good, which is why the elves kind of like had their eye on them this whole time, even though that was like generations ago, and everyone who actually fought for the bad guys has been long dead. But you know, that's basically the situation we got, is like the elves don't really trust them, because it's like, yeah, you kind of fought for the bad guys, or at least your great grandparents did, you know. So it's kind of like, I guess if we had people watching the southern states because of the Civil War, you know, it's like, it was a long time ago, but I don't know, those southern states, you know what I mean? It's kind of a similar idea. So we do have a faction of people who they left. They are like, all right, you know what, we're leaving the Watchtower, we're gonna go back to the village, and we're gonna bow before this guy, this leader of the elves, this corrupted, or I'm not the elves, the leader of the orcs, this corrupted looking elf guy. And they do something interesting here. So I believe this is the same guy who had the hilt, this hilt that all the orcs are looking for. I believe this is the same guy who had it in his barn where the kid found it. he approaches the guy and he's like, oh, hey, we're bowing down, we're ready to surrender, just like the good old days where we were fighting next to the orcs, you know, like, we're totally down with this. And he says, oh, we surrender to you, Sauron. And the corrupted elf kind of like pushes him around and slaps him around a little, and it's like, and he's like, you are Sauron, aren't you? Right? And we don't get a confirmation if this guy's Sauron or not. And so I know the show's messing with us. It's like, come on, if he is, he is. If he's not, he's not. But of course we have another new suspect this episode, which has kind of become the main like meme of this show, is like, is this guy Sauron? Is that guy Sauron? But hey, it's working for me. You know, I don't know what to tell you. I think the solution's gonna be is that they're all Sauron, and he's like divided his presence up into several people. I'm assuming that's something he can do. Anyways, so we don't get a confirmation that he is Sauron, but we do get someone directly asking him the question. So I don't know. And basically he grabs like some random human from their village, and he gives the guy a knife, and he's like, all right, stab this guy, prove that you're surrendering to our side, you're gonna be with us, go ahead and kill this guy right here. And that's basically where we leave that at. And then back at the watchtower, we have the soldier elf talking with his love interest, and his love interest kind of takes a dark turn where she's like, you know what, maybe they're right. We're gonna get overrun. People aren't willing to fight against the orcs. Let's just surrender, you know? And he's like, whoa. Hold on. If you surrender, you're just, you know what I mean? Like, you're just going back to what your great-great-grandparents did, right? Like, fight for the evil guys. Like, come on, you can't do that. And then they kind of get interrupted because now the moon has been covered and the orcs are coming, and we don't know what's going to happen next. Oh, but we do get a little bit more information about that hilt. The soldier elf sees it, the kid shows it to him, and they find this big mural on the wall, this big statue carving of what looks like Sauron, and he's got the sword there from the hilt, and he's like, and the elf is like, oh, it's a key to controlling your people. It's kind of unclear if he was being metaphorical or if it's literally like a mind control kind of thing. It's kind of unclear. So, there's theories out there if this is a Nazgul blade or if this was Sauron's sword himself. It's kind of unclear, but either way, we're getting some little pieces to these mysteries that we've been like being fed, And next we have the Harfoots. We're finally back with the Harfoots. So of course they're doing this long trek where they have the stranger help pulling their wagon because they're in the back because they got in trouble, and they're all just migrating to different places. Like they show the map thing. They're like, all right, they're going here, and then they're going there. They're going through the swamps. And then they go in the woods, and they get attacked by wolves, and we have the stranger come to their rescue, and he does something crazy where he slams the ground and he yells, and it like force pushes all the wolves back, and everyone's all amazed, and everyone seems real happy with the stranger now, right? Whereas before they were like, oh, the woods seem more barren than they're supposed to be this time of season. It's probably the stranger's fault, which of course is like their paranoia is getting to them. But the stranger's arm is all bruised and messed up after doing that force push. He like slammed his hand on the ground and caused like that wave, right? And then we later see him, I don't know if he's trying to heal his hand or what, but he's like putting his damaged arm in water, and he's like doing all his he's whispering to himself and muttering some kind of incantation, and then we see his arm like being covered in ice, which is interesting. I'm not sure what that's supposed to signify, if that's healing somehow. And then of course our main little hobbit girl, she touches his arm, and now her hand's getting covered in ice, and she gets freaked out and she runs away. So there's gonna be a little bit of conflict there, I guess. But yeah, we do get some interesting things. We see, my first thing is that if he is a wizard, which, a lot of people are saying he's Gandalf, he's Sauron, or he's Saruman, or he could be any other wizard. Like, something's happening, right? Obviously. But my theory is that if he's a wizard, the reason that he had a damaged arm is because he does not have a staff right now. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have a wizard staff, which is where they channel all their magic through, right? So if he's just using his arm, then that makes sense. He's like, oh, I damaged my arm. He needs the staff. You know, he needs something to channel the energy through. Because if he just uses his arm, he's going to hurt himself, right? Like that tracks. That makes total sense why all the wizards have staves now, right? Like that, it totally adds up, actually. So if that's what's happening, it's kind of brilliant, actually. I like that a lot. But also, we get something interesting here. So while he's like healing himself with the ice, I guess, you know, however that works, the interesting thing that we get going on here is that we see some images of when he landed and when he's in that crater that's on fire. And then we see that some other elf people have found this crater and they're like investigating it. And one of them is, you've seen this character from the trailers and I believe some magazine stills. And I don't know if this was actually confirmed or if a lot of people just kind of assumed that this is the case. But we see a very pale elf character with short, really bright blonde hair. It's really short. And they look pretty sinister. And I believe that some of the promotional material was saying that this was Sauron, right? Supposedly. Now, again, I have not verified that. I don't remember if I'm like misremembering that or if that was never officially said, you know what I mean? But there's the idea that that may or may not be Sauron, this character, this elf character with the short hair, who a lot of people were kind of making like Eminem jokes about because it's like short blonde hair, so, you know, I get it. But he's like investigating the crater, so it's like, you know, like there's several things that could be happening here. It's still very unclear, but I love that we're finally getting these little droplets of like, okay, here's a little bit more to add to the mystery. Like, who is this? Why are they here? They know something about the stranger and how he fell here. Is this Sauron investigating a wizard? Because he's like, oh, here's, you know, a rival was sent down from the skies. You know, I have to go investigate this. You know, maybe. And then we get this interesting transition. So we see this, you know, this evil-looking wizard who's, I'm not wizard, sorry, evil-looking elf who's investigating the crater. And he kind of like stares off into the distance. And then they transition to, you know, back in the Southlands, the corrupted elf-looking guy who was like leading the orcs. We see him staring off into the distance. And so it's like, are they both Sauron? Is he like, I think Sauron might have the ability to like kind of switch between bodies. You know what I mean? I'm wondering if he's like, 1 second he's in one body and the next he's in another, or maybe he's in several and they're like communicating with each other, right? He's like, I'm way over here, you can see what I see, so I'm investigating the crater while you're leading the orcs over there. Maybe that's what's going on, right? Because supposedly the you know, one of the elf versions of Sauron is the one who told Celebrimbor to make the Rings of Power in the first place, which, you know, again, and we're going to get to this in a second, is at least one of the reasons why they, you know, the whole Elrond thing with the dwarves and building this whole forge, right, to basically make the great project to create the Rings of Power. So I don't know. Very interesting things. We got another contender of like, who is Sauron? I am beginning to theorize that there are multiple people who are Sauron simultaneously. And I think at least two of them are definitely the corrupted elf and this new sinister all in white looking elf. I think both of them are Sauron. I think they're sharing a body, or he's split between two bodies is what I mean. That's my theory right now. And the stranger, you know, if he's investigating the crater where the stranger came from, then the stranger can't be Sauron, I guess, right? Like, that wouldn't make any sense if my theory is correct. So I guess the stranger does have to be a wizard, one of them. He could still be Saruman. A lot of people say Gandalf, but it could be a twist. He's like, no, he's Saruman. He's the white wizard, you know? I think that's very possible. So, and we finally get our fourth and final little plot line here. And this one was also pretty interesting. So, last episode we found out that the dwarves have discovered Mithril, which they're digging deeper and deeper and more dangerously, and they're definitely going to eventually, of course, open up that Balrog, right? Which we actually get a little bit of a story about, this fabled fight between some elf and a Balrog long ago. And it, like, lightning struck this tree that they were fighting over, and it created mithril because the roots ran deep into the mountain, and that's where mithril came from, right? And basically what we find out is that the elf king, who, by the way, he's definitely got, like, he reeks of that kind of condescending, kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna, you just do what I say because I'm the king. Alright, I don't know, he sucks, right? Everyone hates this king. But the elf king, it turns out, did in fact send Elrond, not just for the Celebrimbor's, like, whole job to create rings of power and all that stuff, but he actually did have ulterior motives for sending him down there, and it's because they know about the mithril. They had that legend that I just told you about the mithril, right? And basically what it was is that, and this is where it's kind of like I might have to look up some lore stuff, but they have like this tree that I suppose is meant to symbolize the light of the elves, right? Their immortality and their power and their grace and all that stuff, right? And the tree is rotting, which means that basically their powers are going away. Their immortality is going to go away, all that stuff, right? At least that's the idea. And so right now what they're saying is, like, if we get some of this mithril, because this mithril has light inside of it, which they kind of discussed last episode, mithril has light inside of it, so if we can get some of that, then that might be a way of, like, saving ourselves from this rot, that's happening. And I'm not entirely sure, like, well, why is it rotting? Maybe it's because evil's coming back into the world or something. It's always... It's a fantasy story. It's always something like, well, the light and the evil and something. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But basically, so yes, he knew about the mithril. He sent Elrond there to confirm that they actually do have the mithril. So, what's his name? Dalin, the dwarf. He was right. He was totally right. He was on the money. He's like, yeah, there are ulterior motives here, even if Elrond was not aware of them. There absolutely was something going on. So, what I think is happening here with the whole mithril and the elves needing it, I think this is where they get those necklaces, right? So, this has been something that's always confused me. When you watch the Lord of the Rings movies, you have, Aragorn is given the little crystal necklace looking thing by, what is his girlfriend, the elf girlfriend, throughout all the Lord of the Rings movies. I forget her name. But basically, Aragorn is given this necklace, and the whole big deal was that, like, well, without this necklace, you're going to fade away. You're going to die. You can't just give me that necklace because it has, like, light inside of it. So I think that's what's really happening here. I think the elves are building... they're going to use mithril to create these little necklaces that contain light, and that's going to prolong their life. And that is how you end up with that whole necklace deal in Lord of the Rings. Because I'll be honest, I've never looked up those necklaces. I don't know what was up with that, what that was supposed to be. So, but this seems to track, right? Like, this seems to make sense. Because I only just know, it's like, oh, hey, none of the elves are wearing those little necklace things. Maybe this is where that came from, I guess. Who knows? I could be entirely wrong. But the way they were describing the mithril and how it could save their life, that kind of tracks for me. It makes sense, right? To build those necklaces. Anyways, so luckily, of course, the dwarf actually agrees this time. He's like, all right, Elrond, you didn't know about it. Okay, well, the entire race of elves is in my hands. I'll help you out, but they have to go convince his father, which I don't know how easy or difficult that's going to be. But he also got a table out of it, which I thought was a pretty funny moment. Basically, they're sitting at this dinner table, and it's like this giant stone tablet, very nice. And he's like, this stone here is very special to my people. It only grows really deep, and we only use it for, like, funerals and monuments, like it's like a sacred stone to my people. And so they're like, oh, we don't mean to offend you. Okay, you can take the table with you. And of course, it's like, as they're leaving, Elrond's like, you made that up. He's like, yeah, we wanted a new table. So that was really, like, I loved little moments like that. That was actually hilarious. I think the dwarf and Elrond plot lines are my favorite to just watch their interactions. And I think the stranger in the hobbits, that because of the mystery, I think the weakest one, at least just because they were stuck in Numenor for so long, has been Galadriel, because it just feels like they've been stuck there forever. And the Southlands plot is okay. It's getting interesting now that some of the villagers are just like, yeah, we'll become evil. How else are we going to survive this situation, So, like, that's where it's starting to gain my interest there. But yeah, overall, I feel like the show has definitely been picking up, and I feel like now that it feels like we're about to hit like a convergence points where like several of these plot lines are going to start like meeting up with each other, and we know that Sauron, or one of the Saurons, or several Saurons are looking for the stranger, and they're kind of investigating what happened there. It feels like everything's kind of coming together, and so that's what I think I have really enjoyed about this show more than anything. Even if not all the episodes have been like really super entertaining and engaging, I think it's because it doesn't feel like it's just random. It feels like they have a plan, they know where they're going, they know what they want to do. Like it all feels like it has a purpose, which of course we know certain things have to hit certain points, right? So that's definitely a big help. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, actually. I think this is my favorite episode probably since like episode 2, maybe, so this is the show is picking up. The show's definitely picking up, and I think now that they've left Numenor, thank God, we can really start going, and we haven't had, we've had like the occasional little action sequence, but we have not had a giant epic Middle-earth battle, which makes sense, right? Like the war hasn't technically started, but it feels like we're approaching it now. Like we finally like taken those first steps of like, we got people sailing to the Southlands in Middle-earth, and we got people in the Southlands kind of teaming up with the orcs, and like things are happening, things are going on. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this, actually. All right, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your theories. And lore-wise, am I totally off with those necklaces and the elves making like I'm gonna have to look some of this up, because I know they're not gonna like follow the lore to a T, but like stuff like that, I'm like, what exactly are they? What's the tree? What's the necklaces? What do the elves want with the mithril? What, there's details out there, I know. So, anyways, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.